Good morning again. From my house to your house. Obviously, I didn't get enough likes on YouTube to buy myself a mansion, so I'm going to do it from the same room I did yesterday. Maybe I'll take you on an adventure of my house. I counted, we have about 15 different rooms I could video record from. Guess to liven things up. And then when it gets nice out, like I said, we'll go outside. So today we're going to continue with our geometry. In the notes that I posted online, it goes over the terms and a breakdown of how to figure things out. Right now I'm going to go over this big mess of mumbo jumbo. We'll break it down piece by piece, and hopefully this helps out and makes things a lot more easier to understand. So the definition: vertical. Two opposite angles formed by an intersection of two lines. If you were to look at this big mess down here, we're looking for two opposite angles. So we have BGC, and opposite of that would be on the bottom. We'd have FGE. Two opposite angles. Congruent, vertical angles that have the same measure. So if they have the same measure from top to bottom. And adjacent, same thing. Two angles that share a common vertex, a common side, and do not overlap. So the vertex would be FG to E and DG to E. So these share a common vertex of G. So this angle and this angle would be adjacent to one another. They're right next to each other. So if we look at this big mess of complicated numbers, signs all over, we're going to try to identify the angles as vertical or adjacent. So if we look at angle 1 and angle 4, so we find angle 1 and angle 4. Would that be vertical or adjacent? Are they opposite of one another, or are they right next to each other? Take a second, you look, well, they're opposite, so they're vertical of one another. We're just going to put a V there. Now we look at angles 2 and 3. Are they opposite of one another, or are they next to each other? So they become adjacent. We'll just put an A. What about our next one? We have angles 3 and angle 6. So we have 3 here, 6 here. Are they adjacent to each other, or are they opposite? Opposite. So we'd put vertical. What about angles 5 and 6? Angle 5, angle 6. Are they opposite of one another, or are they touching or right next to each other? So that'd be adjacent. They're adjacent to each other. What about angles 4 and 2? So we have angle 4 and we have angle 2. Is it vertical from one another? Are they adjacent? Or are they neither? If you look, they're not opposite and they're not touching, so we're going to put neither, an N for neither. What about angle 4 and angle 6? 4 and 6. They vertical, adjacent, or neither? We're going to go with neither again. All right. So hopefully that clarifies how to identify different angles, if they're vertical or adjacent or neither to each other. We're going to move on to measuring each angle. I guess to make this a little easier, we'll get rid of some of these numbers. Get rid of the 5, the 6, the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have angle FGE. I guess before we start, we'll look. We see angle AGB is 64 degrees, BGC is 40 degrees, and CGD is 76 degrees. So if we look at angle FG and E, so we have F to G to E. What do you think that would be? Well, if you look at its opposite, what does that tell you? It is how many degrees? It'd be 40 degrees. All right, so that's filled in. So FG to E is 40 degrees. Now we have A, G, and F. What would A to G to F be? What's the vertical of A, G, and F? We'll look across. We have C, G, D, and that's 76 degrees. So you can just write 76 degrees. Now we know that A, G, and F is 76 degrees. Now we have D, G, and E. what's the opposite of the vertical of that? B, G, and A. That's 64 degrees. So we know that D, G, and E are also 64 degrees. All right, now you may come into some things where you need to add different angles together. So we have D, G, and F. So D, G, and F. So what's in between that? What's the adjacent numbers? We have 64 and 40. So we're going to take 64 plus 40 will give you 104 degrees. 104. And what about B to G to F? So we have B to G to F. So we have 64 plus 76. What does that give you? That will give you 140 degrees. Hope this helps clarify anything. The homework that will come out today will be very similar to what you're just going to learn. If you need to, you should probably like my page so that I can retire sooner than later. Somewhere down here, you think you click on the YouTube link and then you follow me? I'm not really sure. I'm not much of a YouTuber or a TikToker. But I do hope this helps. And remember, 49ers were the first team to win 5 Super Bowls.